What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to My Social Life. This is the podcast where you can hear the real stories behind the people on social media. I'm your host, Jacob Kelly, and today's podcast is powered by Trufan. That's right, we have our first official sponsor. I've entered into a strategic partnership with Trufan, and I put out an episode yesterday breaking down the whole deal, letting you know what's happening, what's changing, everything. So if you want a little bit more on that, I highly recommend you go back and check that out. Before we get into today's conversation with Eliot Robinson, there's a couple things that we need to go over first. Number one, if you enjoyed today's podcast, please consider leaving a rating and a review. The more positive ratings and reviews you get, the more it helps new people find the show, and it really helps to grow the community we're developing here. And if you're one of those people that have recently found the podcast, welcome. I'm very excited to have you here. Make sure you subscribe and stay tuned for future episodes. I put out brand new interviews every single Monday and takeaways episodes every single Thursday, where I sit down and break down the most recent podcast of the week in a solo episode. And last but not least, if you enjoyed today's podcast, please consider sharing it to your Instagram story. Tag myself at the Jacob Kelly and Eliot at Eliot. That's with one L and one T. And I'll feature you on my story and send you a message as well. And now, without further ado, let's get to my conversation with Eliot Robinson. What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to My Social Life. This is the podcast where you can hear the real stories behind the people on social media. I'm your host, Jacob Kelly, and today we're joined by Eliot Robinson. And Eliot is referred to as the social media MacGyver. He's the founder of Dunk, a basketball media company with over 10 million followers across social media. He's the former head of growth and strategy on Team Garyvee, growing Gary's account from 600,000 to over 2 million. Now he does consulting for clients and is responsible for the emergence and growth of Dennis Rodman on social media. He's one of the best people on the planet when it comes to social, and I'm very excited to have him here on the podcast today. Eliot, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you for the kind introduction.
It's my pleasure, man. I want to start today's podcast. I was wondering if you could show me.
Show you what?
Show me.
Show you how it's done?
Yeah.
Is this a MacGyver quote? Because I don't know who MacGyver is.
No, this is a question Dennis Rodman used to ask you randomly.
Oh, damn, you did your research. Yeah, show me how life is done. I think the answer is, yes, dude, you did great research. I don't know. Yeah, that's a question that he used to ask me, and I used to always I don't know, you kind of get nervous when you get that question, because even when you asked it, I got on my toes of show you what is it that you want me to show you, but I guess it's life, and I don't have the answer, so I'm sorry, you got to show yourself.
That's fair. But I actually want to start. I just remember hearing you mention that you used to ask that question, so I want to start the podcast with that. But where I want to start is I want to go back to the beginning, right? Because obviously your
really
narrative
scared me. I was like, what are you talking about? I was like, is that a MacGyver quote? Because I don't know. Yeah.
No, you're good. But so with your narrative, it's so heavily tied to basketball. So I'm curious when basketball entered your life. Because I know, correct me if I'm wrong here, but your grandpa, Ed Robinson, played basketball at Yale. Was that an influencing factor in you starting to play ball?
I think for sure. I mean, he probably influenced my father and inspired my father a lot. I started playing when I was um, 6 or 7 years old. I just think my mom or my dad, I don't remember who it was, but they dragged me to a practice and they were like, "You're gonna play basketball." And I was like, "Yeah, I'm gonna do it." And my grandpa, obviously, yeah, he played at Yale. He was one of the best rebounders they've ever had. He averaged, I think, 15 rebounds or something in a season, 16 rebounds. He scored 60 points in high school, and it kind of took him out of the hood. He grew up in Lynn, Massachusetts, which was the hood, the deep hood, and he'd never really played as what you actually think about is crazy. Someone p- pointing at him in the streets, you'd be a good basketball player, putting him on the path, and him having full ride scholarships from Yale, Princeton, Stanford, all these things. Yeah, to answer your question, I started playing basketball when I was 5 to 6 years old, and I think my grandpa influenced it tremendously through my dad.
Mm-hmm. And I know it hooked you right away. And basketball, like I said, has been a part of your life for forever. I know you wore number 8 because Kobe Bryant dropped 81 the day before you started playing. And I was curious if you could tell the listeners the story as to how you ended up with a Harry Potter book signed by Larry Bird.
So yeah, I I wore number 8 due to Kobe, which I I only recently, when he passed away, is really when it dawned upon me. I was like, he had such an influence on everyone's lives. I don't know. It was a very sad moment when he passed. So I want to rest in peace to Kobe. But I ended up with a Larry Bird. It's a weird transition, but fuck it. I'm sorry. I ended up with a signed Larry Bird book because my dad's from Boston. Or my grandpa's from Boston, so I'm half Bostonian. Is that what it's called?
I think so.
Half Swedish. Um, and I played basketball. I grew up in Sweden, and when I was 10 years old, maybe 11 years old, there was a Swedish national team game. My dad was like, "Let's go to it. It'll be a fun time watching basketball. It's not NBA level, but it's at least above where you're at." We went to the game, and being from Boston, obviously, he grew up with Larry Bird. He's probably one of the best shooting forwards of all time. And I don't know, he just saw Larry Bird like 6 bleachers down us, and when you think about it, it's kinda weird weird because we didn't have the best seats, like, we weren't courtside or anything, we're pretty far up, and he saw Larry Bird, and he was like, "That's one of the best Boston Celtic players of all time." Shout his name, I'm sure he just said shout his name because everyone was trying to go up to him, and Larry isn't a very social person. For anyone who does research, he's very shy, he does very few media appearances, like, I don't think he likes to talk to people a lot. I think he's, like, just an introverted person. So the people that were coming up to him, I don't think he wanted to talk to any of them, but for some reason, when I shouted, Larry Bird," and he looked around and he saw my dad, maybe he recognized that he was from Boston or something, and he was like, "Come on down." And yeah, the only thing I had for him to sign was the Harry Potter book. So I walked down and I was like, "Do you want to sign my Harry Potter book?" And he was like, "Sure, you got a pen?" My dad has he's scrambling for a pen, and yeah, it's one of the it's probably the only NBA autograph that I have other than Vince Carter. It's the only NBA autograph that I've gotten from a person. So yeah, I stick to this story, and I stick to the fact that Larry Bird is one of the best shooting small forwards of all time, if not the best.
And you mentioned that like the ball that you guys were watching that day wasn't as good as the NBA, obviously. And I'm curious for you, was there ever a thought to play pro ball even in Sweden? Like I'm pretty sure, correct me if I'm wrong, your friend Gustav Hansen plays pro ball for Jamtland. Like was that ever something you considered?
Shout out to Gustav. He just got a new contract. I think. Um, I was never as good as them growing up, and I think it was due to my confidence on the court because playing basketball now is kind of when you've matured a little bit. You feel a difference on the court. I always it was never in my mind play pro ball, but looking back at it, I think I could have gone pro. Like I think it wasn't the path that God wanted me to take, obviously, so it didn't happen, and that means I probably couldn't have played. But looking back at it now, there's always yeah. I think with some more dedication and some more confidence, more than anything, it's confidence in yourself on the court and like believing in your abilities and just like not always being so anxiety ridden, like having to accomplish things on the court. That was always like you, proving things. It was always like you had to prove things. Now, when you step on the court, not even playing for fun, but playing competitively, like in the U.S., I've played against some pretty good people, and I don't want to jerk myself off here, but I stand my ground. You know, it's I think I could have played pro, not in the NBA, certainly not in the NBA, but somewhere in Europe. And is that the life that I want? I don't know. But to answer your question, yes, with confidence. And I think that's a lesson for anyone who's listening. It's like you don't have to prove it to anyone. Just like take a deep breath and believe in yourself. And that sounds corny as hell, but it's really helped me after. And Jacob, I think it comes naturally after a while. Like you mature. I don't even know if you could force that at such a young age. Like I think it just comes with time.
No, I agree. And that's actually interesting because I played basketball growing up as well. And I've actually had a similar thought where it was the confidence I lacked on the court. Now, I'm not saying I could have gone professional at any level. I don't even think I could have played at the college level here in Canada. But I just noted that's one thing I even noticed about myself personally was just a lack of confidence, especially around shooting. Like I could dribble, I could pass, but I never shot the ball as much as I probably could have just because I was afraid and lacked the confidence to do so. It's interesting that you had a similar takeaway kind of looking back.
exactly, and you put so much emphasis on each shot or on each situation. It's like it doesn't really matter that much. Put your best effort into it, but don't stress the outcome so much. Because if you do, it just makes you perform worse. You see what I'm saying? If you
Mhm.
put too much pressure on yourself, it makes you perform worse as opposed to just letting go and doing your best. But
Yeah,
once again, it's always easier said than done.
this is true. But I kind of wanted to transition a little bit away from basketball for a second. I kind of wanted to start there to set the scene on the impact basketball had kind of in your life growing up. But I was curious about what significance does the song Cranked Out by Soldier Boy have to you?
Immense, immense, immense significance. It was my first, my second, I would say, hip hop song that flung me into video editing. It actually wasn't even video editing. I think it was social media. Once you say it like that, me and my cousin Michaela, and I assume you know the story because you've done your research. Me and my cousin Michaela Robinson found that song, and we're just dancing to it in Marblehead, where my dad's from and my family's from. And everyone was doing that song. And for social Soldier Boy is, I have to give him props. He was one of the best marketers of all time. Like that was that was such a wave. The Soldier Boy cranked that Superman. Watch me, you. That was such a dance. Like he was doing TikTok before TikTok was TikTok. You see what I'm saying? Like
Yeah.
he was doing that dance, and everyone was on that wave. So we were like, let us just do the dance. Let's film, record it, and just throw it up on Vimeo and see what happens. I don't think anyone saw it. I think we had like 2 views, and it was me and her. We might have heard a third. That might have been my dad. And if we were lucky, we had 5, and that was my aunt and my grandfather. But it was like we dressed up in this. I had this big hoodie and this big cap, and yeah, that was good times when you just did things when you're younger. It had immense. It had immense. I think that might have like spiraled me into marketing as well. Like Soldier Boy really rubbed off on me.
Mhm.
Pause.
That was like that was your first kind of entry point into the world of marketing and social media, and I believe kind of the second next progression for you was the greatest video game of all time, Modern Warfare 2. You would have started
Yeah.
recording and putting out videos around that game, right?
Yeah, correct. Yeah, I was yeah, I did. My first video editor ever was of Modern Warfare 3. Uh, but my favorite game of all time was Modern Warfare 2. And that's what, yeah, I would record shit on, I played on the computer, so I would record stuff on Fraps and then put it into Vegas Pro, which is a video editing software, and then just upload it to YouTube.
Fair enough. But now I do want to kind of touch on Instagram because I know you started Dunk was September 2013, I believe. But before that, you had your first Instagram account, and that was you were posting like sunsets with heavy edits, right? What was the intention behind starting that Instagram?
That's what I was going for. It's the intention that Instagram was called Eliot Robinson One, now called
Mhm.
RBN. If anyone wants to check it out, the intention with it was just to. There was no intention, and I think that was the beauty of it. The intention was I started a social media page. I was with my friend Gabrielle, and we're going. Um, I think we're just longboarding one day, and we're like, I'm gonna start a page, and I was just taking pictures, and then I guess I enjoyed taking pictures, and then I started editing, and the beauty of the page was that there was no intention. There was sunsets, and I wanted to take pictures of sunsets, so I did it. And like that's how all the greatest things I think in my life has started when it's not forced and when it just kind of comes and you just do without overthinking. And I think that's one of the traps that once you grow up, you start overthinking and overanalyzing everything. And that's something that I've been feeling lately. It's like there's no need to because that gut and that innocence that you have as youth and when you have supreme confidence is what brings you the best. And like you mix that with trust. And that's like a trust in the universe, but back then you don't even think that way. You just go with whatever your gut and instinct tells you, and then ego kind of comes in and takes away from that. Yeah, I don't know where I was going, but there was no intention with the account Jacob, and I think that's why it was so beautiful. The intention was just take pictures of sunsets, and it created some form of routine every day, and like some form of I don't know, some form of it's created some form of joy by just a new passion, right? A new passion and pushing yourself. in ways that you hadn't before. It was really early on. It was like when the iPhone had just come out, it was like an iPhone 4. People were just starting to mess around with these lenses. So what you would do is actually, I don't think I've told this before, and I don't know if anyone will care, but I'm gonna tell it anyways because this is a podcast and it's about people talking about themselves. Um, you put a lens on the back of the camera, and it would do like a wide, like a fish angle. It was a wide lens, and people had just started messing around with that. So I don't know. It was just a time of exploration in a young person's life, taking pictures of sunsets. That was the intention behind the account. Long story long.
Mhm. That's cool. It's just interesting. I'm always curious about like, especially back then, would have been like probably around 2011 when he was started that account. Like, I did the deep scroll. It's kind of cool to see like almost like the progression of way back where you were at that point. Like, I think you were in some engagement groups at that point. I remember there's a post deep down there of you hitting the 100 follower mark, which is crazy to look on. Like now, like I said in the intro, 10 million followers across social media, and you were like excited to hit the 100 follower mark. So it's just kind of cool. And I think to your point, it's almost like the just without having an intention and almost a sense of naivete is just not a bad thing. It's like how all good things start when you're just kind of doing it for fun. And is that then the reason that you started at the time at Nasty Dunks? Was that just for fun? Like what led from at Elliot Robinson 1 to Nasty Dunks?
Yeah, you formulated it. Yeah, the naivete. It's so beautiful too because there's like no you don't force yourself towards anything. You don't feel forced to do anything. You just do it out of pure joy. Yeah, you formulated that greatly. Nasty Dunks. What made me start Nasty Dunks? I'd been off of Instagram for a while. I think I'd lost touch. I just wanted to do something, and I remember having gotten tired of those sunset pictures. I was like, "Fuck it, I can't take another picture of a sunset." Like it maybe ego had overtaken, or sometimes you just outgrow things. So I'd stop that. And I don't know. I just wanted a new, like you said, that was a transition in between taking pictures of sunsets and starting high school in 2013. I learned how to edit videos, and I'd done some Call of Duty edits, and now I was like playing basketball. And I was like, what if I just do something with basketball? So the basketball edits, video edits started, and I was like, all right, where do we put them? Throw them up on Instagram. It was the first thought. I should have done YouTube, Jacob. That would have been crazy. Like YouTubers have such a dedicated fan base, but I went with Instagram, and yeah, it was once again, it was just kind of like not thinking and just going. And Gustav Hansen, who you mentioned, him and his brother Danny, they helped me out. It was like we had our little operations going early on. They were liking and commenting on engagement groups in 2013, like hashtag ball is life, hashtag basketball forever, following and unfollowing people. And like it was once again, it was just like hit 1,000 followers pretty quickly, and it was like we were so pumped. Yeah, it was. If I don't know if that answers your question or not, but yeah, it was just out of pure wanting to get exposure for videos that have. I think art. It was wanting to get exposure for art that's been created.
And so you said you were pretty stoked when you hit the 1,000 follower mark. And like, how fast did that account grow?
I think we got 1,000 followers after a month. I think we had 10,000 followers after 3 months, if I'm not mistaken. And then by like next year, we had 100,000 followers. So it was roughly 100,000 followers first year. And then from there on, I don't even remember. It just kind of went exponentially. And then, yeah, and then it plateaued in 2016 when I started working for Gary, but that's another story.
Mhm. And like,
Yeah.
as it's having this crazy growth while you're still in high school, like I know your mom worked in advertising. Like, was there ever any conversations about how you can start monetizing it or use it as an advertising platform or anything like that back in the day? Or was it just more so just like something you did for fun?
Just for fun, mainly for fun. I kind of figured out how to monetize it by myself. When back then it was very early, the people that used Instagram and social media for monetization were like apps and affiliate marketing. So it's not the best space. I don't love those spaces. Um, the apps that would use it, you drive downloads and make money, and the affiliate marketing is you drive emails or purchases and you'd make money. So those were the first types of ways to make money. And yeah, I never really had conversations with my parents on how to monetize it. It was more conversations like my dad in 2014 said, "You got to get in. You got to break the Chinese market." And I still haven't figured that out, but I'll tell you one thing: we would have probably had 10 times the followers because I mean, China is just obsessed with basketball, and the population is just. I don't think anyone from the U.S. other than the NBA has really figured out that market. Like, not even the overtimes of the world. I think like that's a next level. Like social media, like Weibo, like WeChat. If you figure that shit out, you're maybe that's Doug's next step. Figure out the Chinese market.
Hmm. Yeah. I mean, there's a ton of opportunity there right now. To your point, they're obsessed with basketball. So it'd be the next natural progression, I think. But like, why do you think people are having such a tough time figuring it out?
Because it's a completely different culture, language, and I don't even know how to use Weibo as a platform. Like I just think we're so foreign and so I don't know. What do you think?
I don't know. I think the language barrier is one, and probably the different nuances of social platform and consumptions of the social platforms. But funny enough, I was listening to an interview this morning with the founder of Musically from 2016, and he was talking about how Chinese culture is
Mm,
heavily influenced by American culture. So I don't think from a culture standpoint that's the challenge, because I think there's just so much influence from the states, especially in basketball, with NBA being the number one league in the world for basketball. Like, that influence is there. I think it's more so like the nuances of how they use social. That's probably where the difference lies in term from the United States to China.
yeah, I agree. India is also an extremely interesting market, which is emerging as well as Africa. I don't know enough about it, so I can't speak about it. But yeah, the Chinese market, if someone figures that out, it's game over.
Mhm. And you mentioned a little bit earlier how in 2016 is it when Dunk kind of plateaued for a little while because you were working for Gary. And for people that don't know, I think the story of how you ended up working for Gary is super interesting. So you ended up working for him like straight out of high school, right? Like, was your intention in high school to try and get a job and get over to the United States as fast as possible? Or was that just kind of like a serendipitous thing that happened but wasn't necessarily your intention?
When I started high school,
Like, more so, like, yeah, like even mid high school, when you started high school, what did you think your plan was once you graduated? Because once you graduated, you pretty much went to New York almost right away as soon as you graduated high school. So, like, when you started, what was your plan post high school? Did it end up working out the way you thought it would?
when I was in high school, I didn't really have a plan. I think that's kind of been my biggest issue, not issue, but maybe my biggest fault because some of the greatest people always have this grandiose plan, right? They always have this, I'm going to, you know, go to the moon or I'm going to buy a team, whatever it is. I've never really had a plan. So when I was in high school, I was just kind of free roaming. And I was like, after high school, I'll take a year, figure it out. That's kind of what you do in Sweden. So getting the job in New York, it was just kind of a relief for me. It was like, oh, now I know what to do. So that kind of eliminated a lot of fear of just taking the plunge and just going. I think a lot of people ask me, were you ever nervous? And I'm like, not really. I didn't know what to do. So it kind of gave a little bit of a cushion to figure out what you wanted to do with life. But yeah, straight out of high school, moved to New York. I mean, I think it gave me like a new beginning, like a way to reinvent myself in a way. But I also think it puts a lot of stress on someone who's 18. Like you go there and you start working. It's not a natural progression, but I'm incredibly blessed for the times that I've had. I don't know. I think people have to be kids too, and this is like a balance of not I don't know. It's like a balance of being grateful, analyzing your past, as well as like focusing on the positive, right? Like I want to say that I should have taken a year and been a kid and had more fun, and I can still do that now. But it's like I don't know. I'm incredibly happy with everything that's happened. It kind of made me find God in a way. So I don't know. My answer to you is I didn't have a plan for high school after high school, and it came as a shock to move to New York City to work for Gary. But it was a great part of maturing both spiritually and finding ways to work around the ego, because the ego really like came up when you were there, and it's like it comes in ways and forms that you don't really realize it does. And yeah, it was a good time though.
Mhm. I think what's interesting though, looking back, is the fact that it almost didn't happen, right? Because when you reached out to Gary initially, you also reached out to Gerard Adams, and Gerard's the one who actually got back to you first, and he connected
Yeah,
you to a friend of mine and past guest on this podcast, Digital Jeff. It's like,
yeah.
how did you go? Like, how close were you to taking the job with Gerard before ultimately ending up working for VaynerMedia?
I I might have been closer to working with Gerard versus working with Vayner. I was on several email threads with him, just like working with him and Jeff and giving them crazy feedback on their blogs. And once again, I don't want to juice myself up, but I was like sitting there and I'd write an email. I don't write email. You saw the email I sent you before this call. It was just like all headline. You're like, who's this emailing me? It was like this composed email with like 50 timestamps. And I was really close to working with Gerard. I don't know what made me not work. I love him. He's a dear friend, and I always speak well of him. But for some reason, I worked for Gary, and it led me to where I
Mhm.
am now.
And when you started with Gary, you were a video editor, and ultimately, like I said, you ended up as the head of strategy and growth for his social media. What did you do during your time as a video editor that kind of allowed you to stand out to ultimately become head of strategy and growth?
I think I was always kind of doing growth, but for video editing, the biggest thing was probably optimizing all the videos and like how do we actually make this work on social? We don't just want it to be emotional. Like we need it obviously to speak the message that you want, but you need to make sure that people actually see it and consume it. So uh, there was one time I wanted to make a video into an ad, and I was like, what if we make this video into a meme? And they'd never made Gary's videos into memes, and for anyone who doesn't know what a meme is, catch on to the times. It's 2020. You should know what a meme is, but it's the white background and the black text on top with a Helvetica New font. And it's basically what everyone is most used to on Instagram. Like you're used to consuming it. It gives you some form of not relatability, but comfort when you see it because it doesn't see stand out as much. It's like, oh, this is general. So there's a video on top of a white picture with black text on top. I think everyone can envision that in their head. So I was like, what if we make one of these videos into a meme? And it was like, if you're a college kid, watch this video. And D Rock pushed me and said, yo, okay, well, what if we actually post it on a page? And I was like, no. And this is where you have to believe in yourself. And this is where confidence comes in. And you have to believe in your ideas because they come to you for a reason. And I was like, no, that won't work. That'll clutter the page, yada, yada, yada. And then we posted it, and I think it just did really well. And then we kept posting memes, and I think now all they post is memes. So that was probably one of the times where I went from video editing to social growth. It was a natural progression because that's what I did with Dunk was kind of like grow the accounts. But for the first months, yeah, it was mainly video editing, and then it was like, nah, let's do the social growth instead.
And one thing I've learned that you're big on in terms of social growth is strategic collaborations. Can you kind of explain how to properly do a strategic collaboration?
Well, it depends on who you are. If you're an individual and you want to grow on another platform, you so this isn't so all right. A lot of YouTubers are not big on Instagram for some reason. I don't know why, but a lot of big streamers aren't big on any other social platforms because their Twitch fan base or YouTube fan base stay on the platform. So let's say you're someone who wants to become a big Twitch streamer and you have a large fan base. Let's take down. Let's say we want to start our Twitch. A strategic collaboration would be to reach out to one of the larger Twitch streamers and let them know, hey, we can help you out on Instagram. We can help expand your reach. We can repost your clips and use our media platform to give you exposure and followers and growth on a platform where you're not big in exchange for doing one live stream a week with us and helping us grow on Twitch. That would be an example of a collaboration that's strategic cross-platform. Um, if you're a basketball media company like Sports Illustrated, um, a strategic collaboration would be to reach out to Dunk and say, "Hey, Dunk, we'll do a cover story on you. In exchange, we'll do a cover story. We'll highlight how an independent media company now has become a competitor to big media companies. I don't know, something like that. In exchange of you sharing um, 5 of our posts per week for 2 months, and you highlight our new original series that we have that features Ron Artest and Gilbert Arenas. Let's say that's the new original series that they have, and they want to get exposure for it. Go to pages that have the audience that they want and offer them something that you can offer. It can be money, or it can be, like you said, if you want it to be a collaboration, an exchange, it can be a service that they have. So that's kind of like if you're a company that want to get exposure. If you're just a kid or a page that wants to grow, and this is the easiest, it's called a shout out for shout out. Find a page. Let's say you have a page that's got 1,000 followers, 5,000 followers. Find a page that's similar to yours. Tell the other person, hey, um, uh, who. Let's say you have a comedy page. Find another comedy page. Tell them, hey, comedy page two. Do you want to share one of my posts, and I'll share one of your posts? And they'll say, yep. And then you both share your posts, and you cross pollinate your audiences. That's probably the most shallow form, but at the most basic level, that's how you can grow accounts very easily. And then it's just figuring out and bartering and um, just making sure it's worth it for everyone. You can do it forever, even personal pages like if you're an influencer with 100K plus, find another influencer whose work you really like. Either collaborate with them or just be like, "Hey, I'll shout you out on my story if you shout me out." Um, yeah, that's what I would say strategic collaborations would look like.
And it was a strategic collaboration was how you really met Buster for the first time, right?
I met Buster through when I worked at VaynerMedia. Actually, he had a question on the Ask Garyvee show. So he had submitted a question, and for some reason we started talking, and I don't know, we just started helping each other out. I think he tried to help our Facebook. I tried to help his Instagram, and then we kept in touch, and yeah, he's become one of my closest friends ever since.
Mhm. I'm curious too, during your time at Vayner, was age ever an issue for you? Like, did people ever question you because of how young you were, being 18, 19 years old at that time? Or was it kind of like the results were speaking for themselves?
Yeah, I think it kind of worked in my favor. Like, maybe they did. I didn't notice it. Maybe I was oblivious to it. But for me, it was always kind of cool being the youngest person at the company. It worked against me, I guess, with team outings and stuff. I couldn't go out. I was 18, so there's no alcohol for me in the city. It was never an issue for me. I wasn't able to go out and drink with all the other people.
And I was curious if you could kind of talk to me about the culture at Vayner and specifically like the people you worked with on Team Gary Vee. Like, that's just got to be such a close knit group of highly talented individuals. Like, how did they shape and affect your career and life, I guess, for lack of a better word, at that point?
I mean, they helped me grow. They helped me realize when I was wrong. They tried to help me realize. I don't know. I think the biggest thing is just like it became a support system, and it's a very like it's an open. It's like a family situation, like Italian style. You take care of each other, and you're there for each other, and you help out, and I still keep in touch. And it's like they're some of my closest friends. I've had some of my best moments with them in my young adulthood. So they shaped my life by being friends and really being there and like creating a real connection. And it's hard when you're young because you think you know everything, and at times you do, but most of the time you don't. And when you're around, like I, I was 18, they're older, they were 25 plus, and that's a big difference. Like 18 to 22, If I spoke to my 18-year-old self, I'd probably be disgusted at how ignorant and how and how innocent and just kind of. I guess I could talk to my 18-year-olds or listen to my 18-year-old self. I've done podcasts, but it's like you grow a lot, and when you speak to people who are over 25, they have a different perspective on life, and it really helps you center and ground yourself. Um, and yeah, I don't know. They've been close family ever since. I don't really know how to express it. I love them with all my heart, and I still think I'm right. I might not be, but I still think I'm right all the time. I think I'm right more often now, but they've definitely helped change my mindset, and work ethic is like it's something that you learn from them. It's like
100%. I was going to ask you in terms of like life advice and everything. In 2016, you tweeted hashtag Vayner thanks to AJB for giving me life hacks and advice. Do you remember what he told you before you made that tweet?
yeah, a couple of things. He AJ was very kind to kind of mentor me early on. He'd take time and I'd just sit down and ask him sometimes forced questions, sometimes just things that came up. One of the best things that he told me, which I still haven't implemented, but it was one of the things AJ told me was make uh, make vacations before you get married. You need to have vacations and things to do every year with your friends because those will last for life. And I don't even think it was before you get married. Just like have 1 or 2 weeks every year where you do something with your friends, and no matter what you do it, whether it's a golf trip or whether it's um, a Zoom call. I don't know. It's like a tradition every year where you get a week for yourself with your friends is incredibly important um, to maintain relationships with, to maintain contact with people when you grow old. That's one of the things. Another thing he told me to do, which I'd never really implemented, but if anyone here is young and doing it, and it's in the same position that I was, which was you're not in college and you're kind of surrounded by older people and you want to have fun, was go on Tinder and just hit up people in in college areas and be like, "Yo, want to hang out?" And then befriend them and become friendly, and then like kind of get into college that way by just like hanging in those circles. I never really did it, but it's great practical advice. So go on Tinder, find a girl or a guy, whoever you are, and become friends with them if you like them, obviously, and then become friends with their friend group. And then basically you're in college and you can go to all the parties, even though you're not in college. Yeah, that was another one. I mean, it's just endless, but those are the two that stand out to me.
What's your relationship like with Gary?
Uh, we text probably uh, every month. We used to talk more often. It's weird because he's like a very not intimidating, but it's like you gotta be alert and you gotta be active when you talk to him. Is what you feel like because I mean time is valuable for someone like that more than anything. Um, my relationship with him is good, but I don't think I use him. Not use him. That's a weird word to use, but I don't think I tap him enough for advice and life lessons because I'm afraid of wasting time from him when in reality I think it would help both of us more because that kind of becomes like a I don't know what comes around goes around, and also I just think when you help good people, and I'm calling myself a good person. I just think when you help good people, it comes back to you, and you shouldn't be afraid of asking for advice. But you also once again have to be strategic. Like you don't want to be the person that hit someone up, but also this is how life is quite. Also, don't be afraid and don't say no for the other person, right? Like ask someone for advice every day. You might get annoying, but maybe one day you ask for some of advice that gives them an idea that helps them tremendously. So it's like life is such a paradox, and I don't know what to do half the time. But yeah, to answer your question, we talk. We're on good terms, but not as often as I think either of us would like to.
And I was curious to kind of going back to the comment you made where you said Dunk plateaued in 2016. Was that hard for you to kind of almost not put Dunk on pause, but not focus all of your energy there when you were focusing on growing Gary's social? I know you did some stuff with PureWow as well. And on top of that, while you're working at Vayner, you started doing social management and strategy for an artist named Bazanji. Like, how hard was it for you to kind of put your own stuff on the back burner while focusing on other people's?
It wasn't hard because I was so in love with the opportunity, but I wish that you have to put yourself first always. You have to put your own. I was feeling good. I mean, I was doing, like you said, doing a lot of shit, maybe too much. But if I could give myself one advice, it'd be, yeah, put yourself on first always. And like, if you're not doing it, make sure you got someone doing it because you don't want to do everything by yourself. Like, if you're not running, don't get someone to do it for you and let go and delegate and be okay with it not being perfect. That's one of my biggest weaknesses is not delegating enough. The second one I would say is like choose one thing, and if you do that one thing very good, get a lawyer to help you out. That's the one thing I would, because you always need a lawyer. Like if you're young and an entrepreneur, get a lawyer and an account. That's something you really, really need to not only to maintain success, but like I guess not even a lawyer, but get someone who's good at what you're not good at. And for me, that's law and accounting.
And I know with Dunk too, you raised money for it at 18, right? Like, did you end up taking on investors for Dunk?
No, no, I never did. I had a commitment from a former NBA player, and that once again, I was just kind of me trying to figure out this whole whirlwind and putting together documents by myself, putting together pitch decks and like business plans. And it's like you take on so much by yourself. Like looking back at it, it was like sleeping 6 hours a night, 5 hours a night. It was fun, and you're kind of caught up in this in this lifestyle where you just work, 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 try, and you get a lot of shit done. And looking back at it, it's fun. But I think now more than ever, it's like set out a goal and just chip at it day by day, calmly. Don't just drink coffee and stress, stress, stress. I think I got too caught up in the New York lifestyle. Um, of like all these things. I think what you have to do is just like breathe and trust in the signs that the universe gives you and kind of act on those signs one by one. And then like things unfold for you much more beautifully than you trying to unfold life because that'll be that's just always a losing formula. Like you trying to force life, it's like let it unfold for you, and just yeah, take it day by day, moment by moment, kind of thing. Is is what and I say this and give this advice, and I'm still not perfect, but um, it's when my life is the most beautiful and magical is when you take it moment by moment and just trust and let go. And I think going back to I think a lot, Jacob. I think that's the problem. Maybe you should just do and think less. Yeah, the overarching goal that you can like that's why okay, you go to Mars, then you let go, but you let um, all your actions map towards that goal. And you can let go, but you know that the actions are going towards the goal. I think that's beautiful as well. And something to for people to work on an overarching goal. Maybe I can figure it out on this call. Let's see.
My follow-up question is going to be, what is the overall, like, the goal with Dunk? But if we'll come back to that later, uh, with when it comes to Dunk, like, what is almost maybe not the goal, but the strategy behind it right now? Like, how do you look at the various platforms? I know Instagram, like you said, was kind of your prominent platform for the longest time, but TikTok's already surpassed it in terms of total number of followers. Like, where are you putting your efforts right now?
TikTok and Instagram are the first, second. But now that we spoke Weibo, I'm gonna try and figure out Weibo this month. And YouTube and website are the things. Finally, that's happening. I was putting together a YouTube and a website. That's yeah. The way I view the platforms is TikTok is a madhouse right now. You're just capitalizing up as soon as much as possible because the growth is insane. The engagement is crazy. The people actually cross pollinate. The age is super young, so they'll probably be with you as fans for like 10 to 15 years, if not longer. And they'll grow into young adults. And if you can be a platform that they recognize with and identify with at such a young age and then grow up with, and if you can actually be a positive influence on them, and this is the next step is how do you actually become a positive influence? We use our Instagram a lot to speak up on the Black Lives Matter movement and everything that's going on. But for TikTok, it's hard because not that people are dumber there, but you need to be more simple and more straight to the point. Actually, that's not true. We have to put more effort into using our TikTok as a positive influence. But back to what I was saying, if you can have these kids grow up like 10 to 15 years and your channel is one of the ones that they not only look up to and idolize, but actually tell their friends to follow and actually tell their friends about, it's just, I don't know, now that I say it, there's a lot of there's a lot of what is it called in English? There's a lot of weight on our hands. There's a lot of what's the correct expression for it?
Like pressure. I don't know if it's pressure or weight on your shoulders or
We have an
responsibility.
we have an immense response. Now that I say it, we have an immense responsibility to actually help these kids out because they're going to be with us for 10 to 15 years, and if they're not with us, they're going to be with some other media outlet. And it's like, how do you actually become a positive influence on them? That's something that's it's actually pretty serious now that I think about it. It's kind of scary. Shit, what have I started?
But like, so you mentioned with the Dunk social media channels, both Instagram, TikTok, you've been using it recently to kind of educate people and amplify messages of Black Lives Matter. And one other adventure of yours is the Hoop Bus. And I saw recently you're using the Hoop Bus to kind of rally the community and be involved in the Black Lives Matter movement. And I was curious if you kind of, this might be a bit of a long answer, but could you kind of tell people what the Hoop Bus is, what the original intent behind it was, and how that's kind of evolved since you became involved with the Hoop Bus in the Black Lives Matter movement?
Yeah, so the Hoop Buzz is a project. It's a nonprofit that I started with Nick Anson from Venice Ball. We bought a school bus and put a basketball hoop on the front and the back, and we've traveled the country. And what we try to do is spread joy and love in communities, whether it be through basketball or through educating them on meditation and breath work and kind of, or whether it be going to Skid Row and giving out sandwiches. It's kind of every day, and each mission with the hoop bus is different. And what we try to do is kind of not stay culturally relevant, but stay culturally, what are the causes right now that are needed for the communities? And like I said, we've given out food to the homeless on Skid Row. We made PB&Js. But what we always try and do is incorporate basketball. It's called the Hoop Bus. We have a basketball hoop on the front and the back. It's a nonprofit, but we actually having fun. So we we take this bus around not only LA but now the country. And by staying culturally relevant, we what are the causes right now that we actually believe in that affect us? What are the causes that affect me, Nick, and the basketball community that we can amplify through our bus and through our social media with Doug? The first thing we did was take it to Skid Row and give away sandwiches to the homeless people. That's one of the things that we do with the Hoopas. But what we also do is we actually play basketball with them. I will play basketball for 2 hours down there. We'll have a great time, and it integrates basketball, which is an integral part of mainstream culture. The second thing, when Kobe passed, like I mentioned at the beginning of the interview, it took on the hoop bus took on a whole different meaning because we kind of dedicated the bus to Kobe Bryant, Gigi Bryant, and all the other passengers that passed away in the accident, on the helicopter accident. So then the hoop bus became a vehicle of how do we honor Kobe, Gigi, and all the other people that died. And we took that bus from LA to Chicago for NBA All Star and back, and spread love through the way, gave away sneakers, and once again tried to impact communities on the ground. The COVID hit. We were like, all right, what are we gonna do now? We can't take this bus around. No one wants to be out in the streets shooting. Corona. A couple months passed, and then Black Lives Matter movement happens. The first thing is like, okay, people are out marching, people are out protesting. This is once again one of the moments, a pivotal moment, not only in history, but something that we deeply care about. And this is the first time I've deeply become, me personally, become not only educated, but not even passionate, but care truly about the subject and stand up truly about something that I know deep down is wrong. So when George Floyd passed, it became something that we were like, okay, this is the next thing. Nick and Nate told me, yo, let's start using the hoop bus. And we started ideating over the phone. How do we use the hoop bus to further the Black Lives Matter movement? And how do we use this vehicle this magical idea that has gone, this magical concept that's gone from idea to reality? How do we actually use this for the Black Lives Matter movement? And what we came up with was do the Black Lives Matter fist on the top of the bus, repaint the backboards, say Black Lives Matter, and join the protests, join the marches. Unfortunately, I'm in Sweden, so maybe we get a comment from Nick and Nate on this, but the response that it's gotten has been tremendous and amazing. And that's what the hoop bus is. It's a very long and convoluted answer, and I hope I answered it, but yeah.
No, that's awesome.
Was that good?
No,
Was
that
that
was really
okay?
good. Yeah, it was great, man. But you mentioned with the Hoop Bus is a nonprofit, which makes a lot of sense with the work you're doing with it. So I'm curious, I don't want to get into numbers or specifics or anything, but what is like how do you make money then? Like how do you use Dunk, your personal brand, your marketing and social media savvy and abilities? Like what is kind of like again, not numbers or specifics, but just kind of like revenue streams. Like what's that breakdown look like for you right now?
Um, for the hoop bus, it's purely donation. So if anyone listening to this, we need money for the hoop bus. We haven't made a dime. We have purely crowdfunded. We haven't gotten any big sponsors yet. So we're looking for sponsors for the hoop bus. For Dunk, it's basically the old advertiser model. It's people want exposure for their product on our pages. People want exposure for their songs on our pages, and we sit on an audience and we sit on their creative ability and understanding the platform, so we know what will work and what won't work. So we offer that to serve to companies, record labels, and brands. And then I do consulting on the side every now and then personally, but those are the mainstreams. The hope is that YouTube becomes a main revenue source as well as own product as well. But those are the main ones for now.
You mentioned kind of with your revenue streams, one of them being consulting on occasion from time to time. And I know you've done many interviews on Dennis Rodman and what you guys did to grow his social media with the blank comments and everything like that, that kind of reimmersed him into culture, into social media culture. But I'm curious more so, what did Dennis Rodman, the guy, teach you when you had the chance to work with him?
That if you are just yourself, things and the world will come to you. If you're just yourself, shit will work out. No matter you can't plan for the universe to help you out. It's kind of like he was constantly. Some people have that magic pull, and like I think it's not self belief, but shit will just work out for him. And I don't know why, but I think it's because he just trusted and didn't put too much emphasis on things. Like he didn't take things too seriously and just he was just him. And I mean, he lived a crazy life. He taught a lot of things. Nothing really concrete. That actually, one thing that he taught me is looks are deceiving, and public persona is also deceiving. He's an incredibly wise guy, and a lot of people. I'll tell people he's one of the smartest people or the most intelligent people I know because he has life figured out. He doesn't have everything figured out. He's not I don't know if he's good at math or not. I don't know if he's good at biology or not. I don't know if he's good at what was it called? Geography or not. I know he's good at life. I know he understands life probably better than anyone I know, and that means he just understands how to navigate it. And maybe he didn't make the most money. Maybe he didn't wasn't the best father. Maybe he was the best father. I don't know. You have to ask other people about that. But I do know that he has answers to things that not a lot of people do. And he has the answer which most famous people come to the conclusion of, which is love. And I don't think I understand love yet, but I know he had the answer to that. And that's a beautiful thing. And most people don't think that about him. They think he's a degenerate and he drinks and he's crazy. And that's public persona. And that's kind of how he's built. And I think that's his ego, but deep down, he understands something that a lot of people don't. And a long answer is looks are deceiving, and uh, people can teach you things that I don't even know if that's a lesson, but he, yeah, he's a great guy. I always give him that because, yeah. Actually, another thing that he taught me is you can live unconventionally. Like he uses two flip phones, and he's a very mysterious dude. Like that's just fucking badass. Like I kind of aspire to be that way. It's just like don't become dependent on social media. Don't become dependent on like scale and people like you. Become dependent on being yourself and shit will work out. I think that's why things work out for him because he's himself. He doesn't need an iPhone. Shit will work out because he just does him. Like he just does his thing and has two flip phones and you reach him when you're supposed to reach him. It's hard to reach him because he has two flip phones, but you like things will just happen in order. And I think us as humans, like we try to force things too much with this ultra connectivity that we have. We can reach anyone at any time. And if we can't get on FaceTime at any time of the day, we're kind of pissed off at the other person. Not pissed off, but we're expecting to be able to reach anyone ever. And I think he's a breath of fresh air by being completely not that and still one of the most um, he was one of the most famous people in the world without that thing, and he still holds true to that. That's another thing that I learned from him. Get a flip phone.
So I'm curious, after kind of spending time with Dennis and learning things like that, where and seeing how he has life figured out, but at the same time, like you said, his public perception, his personal brand isn't probably what most people would want their personal brand to be, right? Where people think he's reckless and all those things. So knowing
Hmm.
that, especially after spending time with Dennis, how much importance do you place on crafting your personal brand? Is it after even after spending time with Dennis, even just beyond that, is it now it doesn't matter how people perceive my personal brand? Or is it now after seeing how interesting and smart of a guy Dennis is, but seeing how poor his personal brand is, you want to make sure yours is better? Like, how do you view personal branding in your public perception now?
I used to put emphasis. I think the biggest thing that you can do once you've built a personal brand is every project you work on is to get a volume of content out and own that project. Meaning, don't overthink your personal brand. Understand what you want to say. Understand what message you want to convey and what energy you want to get across. But don't overthink it and post frequently or make sure that every post that you have has an immense reaction. And that's incredibly hard, but an immense reaction. I would call that the Playboy Cardi effect. Like every post and everything that he Playboy Cardi, Lil Uzi Vert, that's kind of like one step above personal brand. That's like public persona, but choose one of the two. I think the easiest one is understand what energy we want to get across and own your project fully. What does that mean? When you start something like a hoop buzz or if you start a new agency, whatever it is, go fully into it and fully let people know, not only on your stories, but on your main feed. And make sure the content that you create is appealing in your eyes, but also just like owns the project. That's how I'm going to try and start because that's once again I look back, reflect. That's one of the biggest mistakes that when I look and analyze my own pages, I don't own it fully. And If you do, things flow easier. People see it more. Yeah, shit happens for you.
What I'm curious, so in terms of personal brand and stuff, I wanted to ask you about your speaking career, but I kind of want to take it in a different direction. But I know your speaking career is you're kind of like your tagline in terms of your speaking career is how to actually grow on social media and create content that people want to see. But I have a quote written down here from you. And it's a response to a question. And the question was, do you have any advice for people who want to do what you do on social media and grow a massive following? And your response was, don't do it. Why was that your response?
What was the follow up?
You said, don't, or I do have the rest of it here. Yeah, don't do it. If you do, share your truth and be smart with how you collaborate. But why was the beginning of that response, don't do it?
I think I pray. I think it was like, don't do it because I think their answer was, don't do it because if I say that, it filters out the people that really don't want to do it. You see what I'm saying? If you say don't do it, the people that are like, oh, okay, I won't do it, and then it kind of cuts through the bullshit, and the people that still want to do it will believe in it. I think that was I was trying to be snarky. I guess I was just trying to be funny or something.
So I have a follow up. I have another quote. I'm big on quotes with this podcast. I
Yeah.
usually squeeze a couple of them in here. And this was you talking about social media. This quote, I believe, this is when you were 19. So this is probably 3 years ago. So this could have changed by now. I get pretty in depth with my research and I find old interviews and articles and stuff. But the quote was, I actually hate doing this sometimes. It sounds like I think I have it all figured out. That's incorrect. That's incorrect. I'm 19. I'm not a life coach, just a kid. And now my
Yeah.
question to that is social media your passion or is it just something you found that you were really good at and could have success with?
I think I just was really good at it. It's not my true passion. Eh, this is like a gift and a curse. Like you're blessed being one of the best in the world at it. I'm gonna keep saying that I am, but it's not my ultimate passion. It's a tool to showcase it's a tool to showcase something. And it used to be video editing, and I kind of lost editing. So the last couple of years have been a limbo of being the best at something, but you're not doing it for your full passion. So that's the whole thing. And I don't even know if you can figure your passion out. I think it's just kind of it falls into your lap and you try different things. But to answer your question, I just think I'm really fucking good at it, and it pays the bills. And I'll tell you one thing: it's better than working. It's actually not better working at anywhere else because I thought it was better than working in like construction, but I recently started doing like some small construction shit, and that stuff's fun and it's easy to be present when you're doing simple things. And when you're on your phone, there's a lot of distractions. Apple, Facebook, Instagram, these motherfuckers, they know how to keep your attention and to keep you um, dialed in for as long as possible. That's how they make their money. Their money is made off of keeping our attention. And I don't know any other medium that's been their attention other than TV, newspaper, maybe radio, maybe theater, maybe. But that was always in limited times. There was always an end. With your phone, there's no end. So it's like this cycle. How can we keep these people's attentions until they die? If you listen to it, that's kind of what these tech and social media companies are doing. So you being present is like at the back of their minds because they're trying to make money. And I don't think they make money by keeping you present. They make money by thinking you below thinking and keeping you in and on the platform so they can serve ads to you. So it's not in their vested interest in keeping you present. They can obviously there's good things to social media. They can increase voter registration. Tristan Harris, anyone listening to this, listen to Tristan Harris podcast for Undivided Attention. It's great. You should listen to it too. They kind of talk about this, but they can social media can be great as well. But this is what I'm saying is that doing everyday life things is easier when you're by yourself, nailing like literally like tearing down a wall making music, whatever it is, it's easier to stay present than when you're on your phone. And that's just a fact. I don't care what you say. That's my research, which is super biased, but I'm gonna stick by it. It's a job that's convenient. I don't know if it's the best, and I don't know if it'll lead to the most presence in life, which is why I'm reconsidering and why I'm at least aware of it. And I'm aware that it's a tool for your purpose. I don't think social media should be a purpose.
That's interesting.
That that's my answer to your question.
Mhm. And one thing that I think people will have picked up on through this podcast is you're very much into personal development and personal growth. You've spoken on universe, mindset, being present. And I wanted to ask you about one of your favorite things to do in New York City, and that's the bathhouse in New York. Can you kind of talk to me about that experience and how, in terms of being present, how that helps you be present as well?
That's the ultimate. That's the ultimate. That's the ultimate. That's the best thing you can do. I think it might be the best thing you can do in life. It's like you can't get above that. The bathhouse, basically what it is, it's an experience. Um, there's Russian bathhouse, there's Turkish bathhouse, there's different times, but essentially it's a bunch of saunas. It's a cold plunge, hopefully, and there's showers. So you go in, there's usually a restaurant, you can have some food, you can have a beer, kind of relax with your friends. Then you go down to the saunas, you work your way up. You start with steam room, then you maybe go to uh, an infrared sauna, then you go to a hotter sauna. You work your body temperature up, and then you go down in the cold pool. Everyone has their own routine, but decide you go down the cold pool, and the extreme temperature difference messes with your head and your body in a way that you come out of. Anyone who's done a cold shower, this is a cold shower times 10. You come out of there and you literally, I've never smoked weed, but you come out and you feel high. You feel like you're on another planet. You kind of feel like your consciousness is like you just sit and you just feel disconnected from your body, and it's just I don't know. It's an amazing feeling. It's great for your muscles. It's great for your mind. You have really fruitful conversations in there. Like people talk. I mean, they talk about the craziest shit. There's some conspiracy theorists in there that are talking, and they claim to have secrets to NASA and everything. Like they claim to have CIA documents. It's just a great time. Like just imagine the craziest personalities that you could ever find that are down there. Basically every week talking shit, and they scream at each other. Not scream, but like they have like conversations and arguments that are interesting to join in on. Um, there's 5 different saunas that you can work your way through, like, and work your body temperature up, and then there's a cold plunge where you're basically challenging your mind and your body, and when you get out of the cold plunge, you get this feeling of euphoria, and it's great for your I've said it's great for your body 5 times, so it must mean it's really good for your body, but yeah, it's I love it if you couldn't notice.
If I'm somebody who wants to become either more present or more mindful, spiritual, what would you recommend as a good place to start?
Eckhart Tolle is a great he has a couple books, The Power of Now, A New Earth, Wim Hof, breathing, great place to start. Meditation, Headspace. These are all simple tools. I think the easiest thing for me lately has been just recognizing what awareness, consciousness is, and it's kind of understanding you're what's noticing and recognizing this monkey that's walking around. This not monkey, but this video game character that's walking around the world. It's like it's just not real. And when you do that, and when you can tap into that, it really makes life like a movie. So just like look at your hands and be like, yo, who is this looking at my hands, right? And then now all of a sudden, I feel like I'm not even talking to you now. I instantly feel more present and aware. You can focus on your breath. You can fall back. I don't know. Those are kind of things that work for me. I should have used them more throughout our conversation, but you get lost in thought and you get lost in conversation. And I think that's important too. Like getting lost in expressing yourself, because sometimes you get too much in your own head, just like, oh, stay present, stay present, stay present. Nah, sometimes you got to talk to people, and I think that's why podcasts, and I applaud you for that. Giving people it's kind of therapeutic in a way. You're giving people a medium to express themselves, and I'm telling you, a lot of the things that people talk about, they probably don't get to talk about a lot in everyday life. So props to you, Jacob, for kind of being people's therapist in a way.
Thank you, man. It's actually like one of my favorite parts of this podcast is similar to how when we talked about China, where there was like that little unlock that you had there. Like I didn't actually do anything. Like it was in your brain, and you just needed me to either frame a question in a certain way, or the conversation had to go a certain direction for that to unlock in your mind. So I didn't really do anything, but I was just kind of there to help kind of push you a little bit further. Like that's my favorite part, when people have that little unlock as a result of the podcast. It's one of the coolest feelings for me.
You might have transformed the dunk business by helping us breach China.
I mean, I hope so. That'd be awesome.
Yeah.
I saw it written down somewhere, or I heard it in a podcast or something. I can't remember where I saw this, but you said when you were 50 years old, you want to become a school teacher. To some people, that might be a little bit unexpected, but why is becoming a school teacher something that you want to do down the road?
I think later in life, hopefully, I'm a little bit wiser, a little bit less dumb, and know slightly more. And I think it'd be fun to share that with people who are at such a pivotal stage in their life. So, do I still want to do that? Now that you say that, yeah. Will I forget about it? Probably. But yes, I would. I would like to share with kids who are at a pivotal stage in their life the experiences and the things that I've learned, to try and help them. Even though I don't, I think it seems like a good thing. It seems like the right thing to do.
And we talked on this a little bit earlier. We kind of left it, but I want to bring it back. Maybe you've had some time to think about it throughout this conversation. Maybe it is becoming a teacher now. But what are you kind of thinking of for long-term goals?
I wrote them down in my black book. Uh, be more honest with yourself and with others. Speak, speak your mind. Don't be afraid of speaking what you know is right. Follow God more. These are all like, these personal things, but it's like follow signs. Learn how to give. The biggest one here, I'll give you one answer. The biggest one is give up and let life live for you. That's the biggest one. And what that means is just stop trying to force things and let things come to you, and do the things that feel right in that moment, and do the things that feel right because the universe tells you to, not because your ego tells you to. And also speak your mind and stand up for what you believe in. Those are the two things that are my long-term goals.
Mhm. That's awesome. I like those. And I know they're not necessarily like to build X business or to get this many followers. I like the direction in which you kind of set your long-term goals. And another thing we talked about earlier was when you celebrating you hit 100 followers. And I actually didn't realize, but I had this date, a specific date written down. And on June 20th, 2011, you posted asking people to follow you to try and get to that 100 follower mark. So you didn't even have 100 followers at this point, but you were close and you were asking people to follow you. How often do
Oh,
you
man.
look back on everything you've accomplished and built so far? From being that kid on June 20th, 2011, asking a couple people to follow him to surpass the 100 follower mark to where you are now.
Not enough. Not
Wh-
enough.
Why do you think that is?
I think you shouldn't get caught up in the past, but I also think you shouldn't be too hard on yourself, and you should give yourself gaps. So the answer to your question is I have no clue, but I shouldn't.
Mhm. I think it's okay not to have a clue. I don't think you need to you don't need to have an answer for everything.
Yeah.
But before we wrap up here, I ask everyone the same standard set of questions at the end of every episode. I used to call it a rapid fire, but I've been told that these aren't rapid fire questions. So then I started calling it the Q&A, but then I realized that this is a podcast and the entire thing is essentially a Q&A, so that didn't make any sense. So I don't really have a name for this section, but the first question is, you're going to dinner and you can take three people. It could be anybody dead or alive. Who do you take to dinner?
Oof. Muhammad Ali, Eckhart Tolle, and probably a friend or a family member to enjoy it with me.
What is some of the best advice you've ever been given?
Get an accountant. I didn't listen, but get an accountant early.
Love that. When your alarm goes off in the morning, what motivates you to get up and out of bed?
Half of the time ego, other half of the time just getting the day started, because once you get up and out and once you start actually doing shit, life is so magical. It used to be some form of like a battle, but now it's just like, just get up and do shit and it'll be magical.
What's one thing about you people wouldn't expect?
Um, and, I don't like social media. We went over that. I don't know. It's the hard question. But sometimes I'm sad. I mean, that's like everyone's sad. People probably knows that that I'm not perfect. I would say it's like kind of an image that like I don't know, family and friends have that, but it's like I have a lot of issues. Not issues, but a lot of things that I'm battling with, and everyone does. So it's like chill, like yeah. I do my best, but I'm not perfect. That's what I'm saying.
I appreciate you sharing that though, because it's not an easy thing to share. And I feel like it's a good insight for people, right? That even people like yourself who are successful and one of the best in the world, if not the best in the world at what they do, that even at that point, you still can't have it all figured out. Not everything's perfect. So I just want to say thank you to you for sharing that.
Yeah. Thank you for asking.
My pleasure. The second last question: what is one thing that's so important everybody needs to know?
I mean, you can take this question in so many directions. You can be funny. You can self promote. You can promote love. Oh man. Well, what's something that's so important? Drink a lot of water. And my first reaction was to your question was love. Um, yeah.
That's a good answer. So for the final question, I like to flip the script a little bit and I want you to ask a question, but it's not to me. So pretend you have this crystal ball and you can ask this crystal ball any question and you will get the 100% honest, truthful answer. What is one question you want to know the answer to?
Who am I? No, I'll just get the answer. I am that I am. I don't know. Damn. Okay. Can I ask the question to the ball? Which question should I ask?
There you go. That's a good
You see what
question.
I'm
I like
saying?
that. Yeah, no,
Yeah.
100%. I
Yeah.
like that. But
Yeah.
and I want to thank you so much for taking time to be on this podcast. Like you just mentioned the time. I didn't realize it was 2 a.m. where you are right now. So I really appreciate you sticking on the call this long. And I want to give you the floor. Where can the people find you? Plug anything and everything you got right now.
Dude, this was super fun. You're such an incredible interviewer. I'm
Thank
not
you.
saying this to gas you up. You remind me of Sean Evans from Hot Ones.
Thank you. That's awesome.
He's one of the best interviewers that I've ever seen. You should definitely start your own. You should pitch yourself to Complex or whatever news media outlet that you believe in, that you're passionate about. You have the I don't know, you have the personality and the research for it. Plug myself. Hit me up on Instagram DM Eliot 1L1T. Let me know if you made it this far. That's pretty much it. That's all I got.
Awesome, man. Well, I want to thank you once again for taking time to be on this podcast. And I want to thank everybody for listening. Whether you've listened the entire way through, you only listen to bits and pieces. I really appreciate you taking time to check this out. Everyone, do me a big favor. Go and follow Eliot on Instagram. Don't forget that is with 1L. I'll make sure everything's linked in the show notes down below. And if you'd like to follow me, you can find me on Twitter and Instagram and @theJacobKelly. Feel free to come and say hello. Make sure to head to jacobkelly.ca and sign up to my brand new newsletter, Content Caviar. If you'd like to follow the podcast, you can find us on Instagram and @MySocialLifePodcast or YouTube by searching on My Social Life. Thank you once again for listening, everybody. We'll talk soon.
Peace.